manifestation as a practice. It's all kind of converged as of late recently. And I'm really grateful I have the opportunity to kind of like um, bridge both of these topics. I've been studying astrology for like 10 years, but even though elements of like the law of assumption and manifestation have we've always been practicing this our whole lives, and as we learn these things we realize, okay, these are things we've been doing. It wasn't until recently, I want to say, like the last 3 years, like ever since I turned 30, 31, that personally um it just all clicked together. And you know um I've heard people, of course, obviously share their knowledge about astrology. And as of recent, I've seen this explosion over the past couple of years of the law of assumption, law of attraction community, and people kind of sharing more of their insight about that, which was wild because I had kind of predicted that in 2022 when I saw the Pisces energy, and I was like, yeah, there's like this new religious movement coming up. Like it's not really like a religion, but it's like this new like faith movement or something kind of that. And I didn't realize it was kind of a manifestation in a sense. And I had a really skeptical view of it versus now where, understanding it as a law and specifically law of assumption and understanding our potential to be able to like create our world and to live, our lives. One thing that I haven't seen at all really are people who take the wisdom of manifestation and the law of assumption and bridge it with astrology. Um, I have never seen this. I haven't seen it with tarot either. You'll see a lot of people who teach the law of assumption. They're not tarot readers. They're not astrologers. So they they're going to give you advice and say like, oh, you shouldn't read tarot or you shouldn't be stuck on readings, which there is truth to that. Like, I feel like what the law of assumption community, and shout out to those of you in the live chat, remind us is that these readings are not fatalistic. It's not that the reading determines our fate. We control our destiny. But then you have the astrological and tarot, and people who read tarot, like they understand the purpose of it, which a lot of people who don't read tarot, they don't read astrology, from the outside looking in on the surface, it looks like a divinatory art of fortune telling, right? But of course, those of you who do this, there's so much layers, nuances, discipline. It is a discipline. It is a practice. So when you actually now take people who study astrology, take people who study tarot, most of them don't really study the law of assumption. So you don't really hear you'll hear them speak it, but they won't really know what they're bridging. So that's definitely a large portion of where I want to direct my brand, my channel, to kind of focus more on being a magician. I've definitely embraced the astrologer role. I definitely do read the stars. I'll never stop, teaching about the stars and the planets. But I've always been looking for what is that next step, and I've always been Magic Mike, and I realized this. I didn't realize this was what it would look like, but it's all starting to come together, which is really beautiful. So I'm glad you asked me to navigate the current transits as well, and before I go into that, that's really something I'm very honored to talk about here, to just kind of share with you all just certain keys that you already use, but just to recognize how you're using it. Um, in other words, what we can gain from bridging both of these arts is tarot. These tarot cards are manufactured, right? Everything in this life, inanimate or animate, has a soul, right? And so, superstitions from people who aren't familiar with this craft, that have everything to say about it, but they don't have experience. They don't really know what they're doing. You'll hear very erroneous things like, oh, tarot is evil, dark spirits can possess the cards, be careful about that. All of that is hogwash. Like anyone who actually practices this as a discipline, would know that is literally impossible because it's a tool. Your toothbrush is a tool. If you keep your toothbrush around a lot of grime and around a lot of dirt, that toothbrush is going to be dirty. But we're not going to say the toothbrush is demonic or evil, right? If you keep the toothbrush in a very pure place, well, a toothbrush is going to be very clean. And, when we deal with spiritual tools, and spiritual hygiene, it's all in the heart. It's all in the soul. If you're a negative person, if you're an evil person with a horrible behavior and you're around negative people, that's going to, transfer on your tools, and you're going to have experiences that reflect this. And it's amazing how in these communities, it's easy for everyone to point the finger at like what's the wrong thing or what's evil instead of looking at our own selves, right? Um, and that's how you know who's snitching on themselves or not, because given that we do create our realities, then the reality you're experiencing is created by you. And even though things that happen to you by other people are those people's responsibility, the way we respond and react to it is our karma. So this is where, when we look at these tools, right? Um, all these tools are doing, which is really cool. If we are going to take astrology, if we're going to take um, tarot, for which I think is really amazing, because astrology will kind of give you a more objective science, and then tarot I feel is a more subjective magic, right? But mainly there's a misconception that the tarot card that you pull tells your future, when all the tarot card is doing relative to how you pull it, because some people pull certain cards, certain people kind of, pull freestyle it. All the tarot is doing is reflecting your subconscious. That's it. So it's not necessarily that the cards tell you what's going to happen. You are interpreting what the cards mean to you. So, like, you could literally pull a whole different set of cards and come up with a similar interpretation. And this is where, when you practice this, when you step into this discipline, you see how the perspective you gain from this tarot craft and practice exercises your own mind in order to be able to communicate with yourself. Because these tarot cards are mainly just symbols, right? The death, lovers, with the major arcana, each card kind of represents an aspect of life we go through. So experienced tarot readers know that tarot reading does not stop once you put the cards away. These symbols still exist in real life, and we're still interpreting, and we're still kind of reacting and responding. So, when you pull a spread and it tells a story, there is that magical element of how, your own subconscious knew what card to pick, but there's still a subjective element to where that's not necessarily fixed in reality. What you're being called to see, which will be different from what other people see, will be what's meant for you to see. And this is really where we get even more intuitive here, because somebody can be trolling you and give you a BS reading. Their intention was to give you a BS reading. But the person who's listening to that, it was exactly what they needed to hear. It was a reading for them, right? Even though the person giving the reading was completely making stuff up, this is now the intuitive, what's the nonlinear nature of these practices, to where, this is not bound by logic. And whatever you're meant to gain from it, which is what makes this very subjective, other than astrology, which is primarily very objective, as far as this planet is at this degree, the moon is here. The interpretation of that might be subjective, but the actual as above so below, that's real time. So what's really amazing with that, especially in terms of the tarot, is you're reflecting what messages you're bringing up, but now with the law of assumption, with your manifestation ability, pulling a tower reading is like looking at your GPS. And if you're headed west, you can just decide, I want to go east. I'm not going to let this reading, like, the reading doesn't mean that I'm destined to go west. It's just saying, hey, if you keep on doing what you're doing, this is where you're headed. And so, once again, these fields are not regulated. So, I can't just up and become a lawyer and start giving people legal advice. I'm going to go to jail, right? Like they're going to penalize me. I can't just give people medical advice, right? But like anybody can just pop up, say that they're goddess Isis 4256 and start giving people astrology readings yesterday and giving them advice and telling them this and telling them that. So, this opens up the door for so many frauds, so many cold readers. There's so many people hurt out here just looking for advice, looking for people to tell them what to do. And know when I first started being a reader on Keen, and I would like just go jump to different readers just to see, falling in that same trap myself. I realized, wow, a lot of these people are just saying what they think I want to hear. Like they're not like, I didn't get any reading at all. Like you didn't tell me anything, which makes me appreciate the legitimate readers. And that's what helped me realize the difference between a legit astrologer and tarot reader or just psychic versus someone who's just hitting you with Barnum statements, cold readings. The amateurs and the frauds will tell you vague statements that don't necessarily take away from what you already know, right? So it's not like someone confirming something you already know that they shouldn't have known, as much as just giving you these vague statements, telling you things you want to hear, giving you safe answers, which is, wild because when you read these testimonials, people are like, oh, this person really helped me. This person gave me advice. And all these people really needed was just someone to talk to them, just someone to listen to, right? Versus people who, right off the bat, like they're telling you stuff about your life that you never even told them. Like there's no way they should really know. And it's not something that can apply to other people. It's either true or not. And what I really realized about this is, especially for those of you who are coming in new to this, the first minute of a reading, you'll know if it's real or not. It hits instantly. Which I was kind of skeptical at first or kind of hesitant, but now it's just you can literally tell. And back to that whole theme of manifestation, when we kind of now align these practices, it makes this process so much more creative and fun, which was a huge block for me, especially as soon as like last year. My whole life I've been approaching spirituality, the science of the breath, right? I've been approaching this occult philosophy, this mystic path scientifically. I've been approaching everything way too scientifically, not realizing that the bounds of logic, because magic is science, right? But not realizing that the bounds of our infinite potential far supersedes human logic, and how inadvertently we can put, ourselves in a box by adhering to outdated research methods and traditional methods that, people who rest too much on accolades and worldly wisdom put out there to act like they know more than us when they don't know anything at all, especially more than us. But people are very well decorated with the right vocabulary. I have this PhD. I studied this, anatomy. I studied this biology, and they use deceptive rhetoric to give the impression that they're saying anything when most of what we're taught is purely theoretical, inconclusive, peer review research, only to find out based on quantum mechanic research that this universe is not even real. Something that many of us, right, without needing a PhD in science, I'm pretty sure we all figured out that, you know what I'm saying? A lot of the stuff we experience is not real and that we're not even really here, which I feel like debunks a lot of classical findings that really basically frame this material universe as being here for real or being materially real. So that's a very recent discovery. This Nobel Peace Prize, I think it was 2022, groundbreaking. And once again, before we go into the current transits, which are amazing, um, the I feel like we're in a very, very amazing period to reclaim not just our power, but who we are. You know what I mean? And to be put in that position to, once again, like, instead of approaching things too logically or scientifically, to I had to really teach myself to just have fun again, to just really enjoy the moment, of being so preoccupied with the results or how things play out instead of just being present. That's something I've really struggled with my whole life, because it's easy for me to just stay in my head and just think about everything instead of, right, instead of just be here now, right? Which the Ram Dass book, Be Here Now, was introduced to me years ago, and like, I still never knew what that was about. Like, I read it, and I just read it with such like I just skimmed through it. I was like, okay, this is a nice concept. And it's not until now that I realized I really didn't understand what that book was, versus now where it's like, okay, be here now, right? Be, do, have. A lot of these concepts that I felt I understood, now is just, they're just coming back around and clicking so much more. So yeah, in fact, I would definitely, someone asked, do you recommend that book? It's something that I want to go back to and read now that I feel like I'm a lot more, awake, and if anything, I'm a lot more like uh understanding, right? But yeah. um
So
oh
with
oh
that being said, though, I find myself constantly going back and listening to Alan Watts and Ram Dass and things like that, especially when I get caught up in these transits and everything and I'm getting too serious. I always go back to the basics like that, just so I can remember to be present and enjoy our experience. Even as we're getting all this knowledge and all this going on, we've got to enjoy every moment.
Lot of this is feeling good, and that's another huge trap that you know I didn't realize I was doing until it just kind of clicked, because I lied to myself my whole life, like we all do or usually do, and in a sense where I felt like I have to have it before I can feel good. Like, I won't feel good until I have this. I won't necessarily be that until I have it. I realized, no, I have to be that first, then do based on that, and then have it. Just kind of clicked. And um another thing that's very, and Natalia, thank you so much for that comment. Another thing that's very uh, misleading, that you will hear from people who don't have a basic knowledge of astrology. I think because of and see, a lot of this is because it's not a regulated field. So, to their defense, you have a lot of people who have no business teaching astrology, saying all these misconceptions, putting, this culture out of judging people by their zodiac signs. And we have this out here, but people listening to them are like people listening to fake doctors and then saying that medicine is BS, when you didn't go to a real doctor, right? You didn't go to a real physician. So you hear people say like, oh yeah, religious people, certain people who are just not kind of versed with this in the spiritual community, that will say like, oh, you don't need astrology, you don't need tarot, like, you have all the power. And that's very misleading, because you don't need a GPS, but you're going to use it. If you drive a car, you're going to use Google Maps, right? But you don't need it. You know what I'm saying? You could just, you without the map or app, can go to the destination. It's going to take you a lot longer if you don't know where you're going, right? So you don't need astrology. But astrologer, millionaires don't use astrology. Billionaires do, because it's right. It's gonna get you where you're going. You're gonna know what you're doing, right? If you actually know someone who knows what they're doing, boom. Tarot really brings up subconscious processes within you, so that you make conscious light of it. That's really it. There's no, oh, please
Yeah.
go.
And you can live to your highest potential when you
Yeah,
become more self-aware.
right. Yes. Which is a huge deal. Like, and that's the thing. Like, if you're not, you're just gonna call it fate. And in studying astropsychology with Glenn Perry, like that's a really major in trying to introduce the necessity for astrology in a postmodern world. You know, we're looking at these tools that bring so much profound clarity of aspects of your own idiosyncrasies and psychology and personality that are beyond just superstitious and superficial. And relative to all that, it continues to put us in that position to now create with so much more insight. And this is where I feel like for the manifester, for the magician, for the person practicing the law of assumption, tarot, human design, astrology are the most significant tools ever. I can't even say of our age, because the Dogons, before the advent of NASA and you know what I'm saying, telescopes, were able to figure out the location of Pluto, Uranus, planets that you can't even see visibly, right? That's astrology. Um, Before Ptolemy and the Chaldeans kind of, innovated it with the precession of the equinox and fixing all that, the axis, we've seen it evolve in so many ways. So, you know, um, and like Carrie said, all the high peeps utilize astrologers. They're no fools. There's been a concerted effort to keep this in the hands of the elite and to kind of water down what the rest of the people consume. And we're finally hitting a place where that's skyrocketing out of the narrative and people are kind of rapidly awakening, which is another thing to keep in mind. Like, for the amount of people who are open and saying that this is BS, there's a silent majority of people who are waking up. They're not the ones saying anything, but they know what's up. They've definitely learned from their previous and past experiences. So we know that these are amazing tools. And this is where now the journey of manifestation, or rather the nature of the law of assumption, has many parallels to Christianity, has many parallels to many religions. And in this age of knowledge, coming out of the age of deception and dreams and beliefs in Pisces, we're finally stepping into a place where we can take the wisdom in religion without the dogma, right? The whole notion of worshiping a god, the whole notion of repenting for your sins, going to church, being pious, being Christianized, being like pure, holy. These are Roman Catholic inventions. These are not what the gospels that were inspired, which I really do see these books as allegories and analogies. The whole notion of the Dark Ages and these, inquisitions are far from these religious teachings at all. What many of these religious teachings are all really reminding us of through these stories and allegories is the whole wisdom of as above, so below. And, when we step into that I am presence, we are tapping into the kingdom of heaven within us. And with the vehicle of our imagination, we're in a position to literally create our world and restore the reality that there is nothing outside of us that we need. That is the central message that I will stand on. And until, I'm finished with this, we'll keep on pushing out. The kingdom of heaven is within you, right? In this industry and society where everyone has a course, everyone has the secret solution, everyone has the answer for this fee. Just want to remind you, you don't have to pay for any of that. You don't have to pay me for anything. Just go inside. And, it was something that was very difficult for me to understand. I used to roll my eyes every time I heard people say, it's all within you. It's all within you. Like, what the fuck does that mean? And a huge nature of that is the systematic oppression of how for centuries people have been completely brainwashed, conditioned, and nerfed. And it wasn't until I understood these principles of how simple it is for us to imagine the experiences we wish to live and feel and give that to ourselves now before we see it in our 3D external environment that I realized, wow, you know, the whole notion of how as kids we are completely stripped from our power and brainwashed and conditioned to accept outright lies about our anatomy, about our minds, about our world, and we're basically taught to be slaves so that we can perform and work for elites. um, Everything is pretty much methodically meant to nerf you. If I'm responsible for controlling a collective over the past 3 centuries where groups and dynasties of people have stolen wealth from other people, well, if I can convince majority of the world that you don't have power within yourself, that's delusional to think. You need our resources, you need our protection, you need to abide by these systems and rules and laws for your own benefit. You need to learn this material to know anything. It's all an illusion. It is all a lie. None of that is real. And now it is scientifically proven that none of this is real. Like, this is literally, I'm not going to say it's a simulation, but I mean, literally 0.01% of what we have, or of what's material, is real. Everything else is metaphysical, non-material. So this is where, when we kind of remember that our enemy is not flesh and blood, there's literally not a single person that you see that is flesh that is your enemy. It's all unseen, right? The Bible speaks of us building treasures for the world after this one. The things that we seek are invisible and last forever. Everything that is physical is finite. It doesn't last forever. And so you have so many people who have been tricked into building fortune and leaving legacies in a fake world. Like that. That's crazy. But then you're crazy if you think, oh, I'm only here temporarily so that I can train my consciousness to build qualities, invisible qualities, to take to the life beyond this, right? The afterlife. Well, we've been tricked to believe you don't have a soul. Our devices can't measure your soul, which is the stupidest thing I could have ever heard. Our devices can't measure the brain of your function. We can't measure your soul. So you're just a physical being, right? And you only live once. And relative to the United Nations, and the theosophy groups that are in cahoots with Luciferianism and Satanism, that wish to destroy the nuclear family and bring in so much more, like, division in a whole lot of not necessarily patriarchal or reinforced traditions, but just really, splitting people apart, and really opening up the space for chaos to kind of take its place, although organized, right? Um, this personally um just puts us in so much greater of a position to speak up about what it is that we know, and to break through past this. And thankfully, once again, we have these tools. But yeah, it's a simulation, but not from what our perspective is. Amen. Like Kobe just said. So yeah, um, just to kind of simplify once again the law of assumption, everything that you personally um assume is true. um and this took me so long to accept. I didn't realize how much we get in our own way and how much we feel we don't even deserve what it is we want. Because it took me forever to accept that it is literally as simple as just giving it to yourself, just deciding, oh, go ahead.
Yeah. Well, and to add to that, what you were just talking about, the narrative that we've all come into, we're playing in this story, this simulation or whatever. That's what we're talking about. What I'm talking about when pulling away the layers, these assumptions that we have, that with these beliefs we have that are not ours. We were taught these even from young age on. We were taught at school, we're taught all these things. And so we go around and we assume things to be true, and we have no idea why we even assume it to be true. We have no idea where these thoughts, beliefs even derived from. And it's just part of the simulations that we've been talking about.
Man.
Yeah.
And I totally agree. And like it just exposes um how much we complicate what's simple. But another thing that people don't give themselves the benefit of the doubt of, because it's so easy to just blame yourself for it. We don't always acknowledge that there is a literal machine run by evil forces specifically meant to nerf you, to keep you in a certain vibrational state. So that, and it was very genius the way this is mapped, because if you think of everything that really enables you to support this creation of your reality, a lot of what we're obligated to do goes against that. Most people feel like they have to make a living inundated with outright lies telling them you need to be afraid, you need to be worried, this is happening, you need to get this done. So it's hard for people to naturally be in that state where they can just enjoy their life and just create, because they have accepted lies. I need to work hard to make a living. I need to do all this to get successful. I need to do ways that traditionally I was taught, all which are lies. And then you have forces which control the narrative, as we all know, so that people who really wake people up are dealt with, whether killed, silenced. And it's amazing because now we're more aware of this than before, where people didn't have the internet to really speak up with their voice, which is a staple of this new age of Aquarius, where in the new age of Pisces, people cannot really speak their minds without going through a gatekeeper. Now anyone can have their own platform and generate that traction, kind of breaking through a lot of what occurs through here. And so what's really amazing though, and this is where we can start to speak on the current transits, a lot of the playing field is being leveled, where a majority of this deception that really kind of held us back in the darkness is dispelling at a much more collective, massive rate. And the best way that I could really say this in a way that because the way that we've been taught, it's very subtle. The way that we've been taught, the words we use, the vernacular enchantment, even the whole notion that, oh, this isn't realistic, or that's just kind of strange, that's fallacious. That's really an invention. Like, there's nothing that's too strange. As a limitless being too, there's nothing you can't necessarily accomplish. So the simplest thing I can say is, collectively, everyone is activating the next level of conscious expansion, which is unlocking more alignment with aspects of ourself we've long since been taught don't exist. So the only thing that these forces that wish to control us, which now the whole nature of the matrix makes so much sense of how we're used as batteries, how our energy is used to really, simulate this, right? Now that we're kind of awakening, the best thing that they have done over the past 3 years is convince people, because like the universe has created this app. Let's just say like this conscious evolution is an app, right? It's something that's hitting everyone collectively, but you have to download the app. You have to actually download the app, install the app. We got to do the work, right? But if I can convince everybody, oh, that app is dangerous, that app's BS, that's not an official app, right? The app that's being downloaded is not on the Apple store. It's not on the Android store. What the government does is they give us phones that are locked, right? So we can only have certain providers. Those phones give us narratives, right? That we have to take in. We can't listen to other, different narratives. These are the experts that we're forced to listen to. That's it, right? And they're telling us weird stuff like men can have periods and all that stuff, and we just kind of have to accept it. Cool. So now what the universe has brought through, what our spirit team has brought through, is the ability to jailbreak your phone, right? This whole Uranus and Taurus aspect. When you unlock your phone, you now take the quality of your phone and you jailbreak it. You enable it to now download other apps that are not just policy, right? And also switch to different systems. So now that whole theme of jailbreaking your phone, thank you, learning to see me. Jailbreaking your phone is that analogy of breaking out of this systemic narrative where now, men are fighting with women, black and white people are arguing with race, and you have, young people and old people, you know what I'm saying, kind of coming through, which is just a narrative plot to divide people. And you're now opening up to other sources, or to sources of truth that are not regulated by the government, which is why they want to keep it hidden. So now you're getting this app that you put in the work to unlock your phone. You found the app provider, you downloaded this app that is available for everyone. And the reason why I like that analogy is you hear this misleading rhetoric of, oh, the 144,000 chosen people, we're the spiritual elite. We're so much better than other people. That's why they're asleep. They're not awake. But I wouldn't necessarily say it's that the people who evolve consciously and pass on to the next world, versus others who just get left behind in this old world. Because people talk about a split, right? Or the whole notion that not everyone's going to make it. The reason why the people who make it isn't necessarily because they're better than other people. They downloaded the app. They put in the work to download the app. Whereas other people were convinced by the people who gave them the phone, don't download the app. If you download the app, we're going to cancel you. We're going to ostracize you. You're not going to be popular in our society. So people made that choice. Most of you watching here don't care what other people think as it pertains to your path. And you stand on what it is you believe in. And you are really good people of integrity who are willing to at least put yourself out there in the face of those willing to ridicule you just for speaking your truth. Whether you're right or wrong, you're standing on it. You put in the work. Most other people feel threatened. They don't want to lose their job. They don't want to lose their standing with their friends, their rich friends, their popular friends. They don't want to look and be ridiculed. They don't want to lose all their hundreds of thousands of followers. You know what I mean? So they made their choice. They chose the world. Those of you who downloaded the app, you chose your soul. So for those of you who really put in that work to instill these principles, downloading the app is a program, right? This program, magic spells are programs. So downloading the app is aligning your thought process with beliefs and thoughts, whether you believe it or not, that align with your authentic soul self, versus the programs of the world that take you out of alignment with your soul and want you to align with BS narratives, right? That don't have anything to do with you. If you think about all the money poured into the entertainment industry complex, for what? Why are all these children still investing all of their time on TikTok, Facebook, paying money for these Satanists who just worship themselves, idolizing these superstars that are human like you and I. It's what are we being distracted from? What is the ploy, right? And a lot of what we're being distracted from is this collective awakening. Everyone's talking about everything, but the most pika pika shout out to Kobe, but the most important facet of what's happening, the evolution and expansion of human consciousness. Why aren't these scientists talking about this? Please go ahead. Please feel free to come in whenever you want.
There's just a slight echo, I think, when I come in. I wanted to say one of the most important things about what's going on and the separation that's trying to what we're seeing is that if you're doing the work and you download this app, like he's using as an analogy, the most important thing is you're finding your truth and you're finding out whether or not you truly believe what you're seeing and hearing. Because most people are superficial. They'll listen to something. Remember, everything we take in, we program our minds with, even if it's something we're scrolling through a couple seconds, we're taking in that knowledge and it imprints in us. But when you become so self-aware of what your true beliefs are, and if you hear somebody on TikTok and you see all these different, like you said, the division that's going on, you can actually sit back and go, is this true? No, this is not true for me. Why am I getting angry? Why am I getting mad? Why am I choosing this? I don't even care really, but you have a voice and you can stand middle ground. And I think right now, most importantly, we need more people walking this middle ground because they don't want us to wake up. But if we sit and observe and figure out who we are, we will be there for those when they all do wake up, and we can help others when they come out of this crisis. Because right now there's just a big, huge crisis going on, and we need to be there for them when they do.
And Frankie, what you said was, I think, the most important thing, because that you detailed the next 2 year process. The end of Saturn coming out of Pisces is this end of the world, like the structures and traditions. Since the 1800s, the last time Neptune was in Pisces, the relevant 30-year cycles since then are bringing in centuries of closing. And Uranus going through Taurus, Saturn and Neptune getting ready to go through Pisces. Colby's talking about gene editing, technology with AI. As soon as Saturn entered 0 degrees Aquarius, we got socially distanced. We were censored. We never seen fact checkers until Saturn of limitation was in Aquarius of the collective and communication and knowledge, right? And then as soon as Pluto went to Aquarius, we started to see this AI explosion and, simulations of AI going against its programming, AI artists coming through just at 0 degrees, right? I like how Bonnie said it's not the end. It's literally just the beginning of the next paradigm. So this period right now, Saturn and Neptune coming out of Pisces and Uranus in a Taurus, with Jupiter in a Taurus, is that bridged gap of what you just said. The next generation of leaders holding space in advance to be who they are, while Saturn and Pisces and Neptune is ending the old world and traditions of everyone collectively still stuck in that illusion. Because 2 years from now, in 2025, once Saturn goes into Aries, that's the new world order. It's too late to build the ark. All right. The end of the world. World is Saturn. Pisces is the end of the zodiac. Saturn and Pisces is the end of the world. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, the new cycle. Saturn is the world order. Saturn and Aries is the new world order. But with Neptune here, bringing in the outer planets, it's a whole new cycle. So, when 2025 hits, and the illusion dispels and Saturn goes over Neptune and all those illusions are dispelled and people see, oh, this is what's been happening. People are going to be looking at who actually knows what's up. And it's going to be everyone now who's finding themselves, who's leading by example, who's actually doing what we do. And for Tina, who asked, and for people who are just stepping in, that application is a metaphor that represents your conscious evolution, right? The app is run through programs. Those programs are the thoughts and feelings that you program your mind to align to your own magical nature, which, once again, the reason why it's difficult for most people isn't because you're not doing the technique right, isn't because you are not high vibrational, because you have all these law of attraction myths. You have to be high vibrational to manifest. You have to do this technique in order to manifest. You have to be happy. You have to be in this state of, all of that's a lie. This is law. So like, if you're shitty in your mood, if you're depressed, if you don't even believe in what it is you're wanting to manifest, if you don't have the highest vibration, you're still going to manifest what it is you're going to manifest. Okay. And the name of the app, it's a metaphor. We can call it forever, the forever app, we can call it the evolution app. The app is an analogy. It's not, it's that you download this app through your imagination. Okay. And people don't really acknowledge the power of the generation. In fact, if you want to know who's brainwashed or not, and you want to know who's conditioned or not, right? I used to be brainwashed, so we all had to come out of this. But you know what was so really hard for me was to accept that I can literally give myself what I want. For example, and I practice this too, where ever since I've been practicing this, I went to the dispensary the other day, and like I just made the decision, you know what? I'm gonna get a free pre-roll. And I spun the wheel, boom, I got a free pre-roll. Which, by the way, like the odds of that is ridiculous. But now I know. I just decided, cool. But what even happened right after them was a much older woman who you could tell, I don't think she knows what pre-rolls are or whatnot. She won a free pre-roll. And she was like, I don't know what to do with this. She looked at me, do you want my pre-roll? And I was just had won a pre-roll. I was like, wow, I'm about to walk away with 2 free pre-rolls. But the people who worked the store were on it. They were like, I guess they didn't want me to get that pre-roll. They're like, oh, no, don't worry. You don't have to do that. Like, we'll just hold it for you or whatnot. And thinking in retrospect, it's like, first of all, she asked me if I wanted. I don't know why you have to do that. But either way, it really reminded me of the potential of the imagination, being in a position where I had imagined I'm going to be in California. I didn't even know I was going to be in California. And later that day, someone called me, said, hey, we're doing a ceremony in Cali. I'll see you there. So it's like, evidence. And I've had experiences where I had no other choice but to trust in faith and the angels, and they came through every time. Right back when I was skeptical about angels. So it's easy for me to understand that whatever I imagine, I can create. Whatever I decide, right, that I want to live, all I have to do is just persist and get through. And what was very difficult for me to accept was that that's it. Like, I just have to decide that I have what I want and to just think as if. And I didn't think that was enough. I felt like, okay, but how do I get it? Like, all right, I can believe this, but like, what am I supposed to do? And it was hard for me to accept that there's nothing that I had to do. I like, yeah, using the zodiac backwards also kind of gets there too. There's nothing that I had to do. All the times that I've written down on a piece of paper, I'm going to receive this dollar amount, or I've spoken to the planet Jupiter, I want this experience. I didn't have to do anything. I just decided. I didn't even believe it fully. I forgot I said it. Boom. In less than a day, these things happen because that's our power. This is our magic. This is our ability. So what's very important, and this is a good litmus test so that because some people unknowingly could be agents for the matrix where they're parroting these false ideas like, no, you have to work hard to get what you want, which is a lie. You first of all, you're here to work smart, not hard. Personally, nobody is going to clean the floor. The next time you hear someone say you have to work hard, ask them, would you clean the floor with a toothbrush or with a broom? And they're going to tell you with the vacuum. So then you'd rather work smart than hard. So it's not about working hard. And some people work too hard because we are designed to feel that we have to put control in our own hands when the material part of us is just less than 0.1%. So scientifically speaking, you are a metaphysical being, and you have energy that, every single experience and possibility has already happened. And that's a major thing. Manifestation is already done. So you just have to claim it. But we don't have persistence. We don't have faith in ourselves. And now I understand why Jesus was saying, "Oh, ye of little faith." All you need is a mustard seed of faith. So talk to most people and ask them, right? Um, do you believe that you have the power to create your reality? Right? And then ask them for something that they want right now. And then tell them, congratulations, you have it. Right? How many of those people actually believe or accept that they have it? A large percentage of people would feel silly accepting that. And that's how brainwashed we are. Because now, scientifically speaking, it's actually weird to accept that you don't have it. But we have been conditioned to focus so much on this material reality that we've just learned isn't even real. We're all walking around delusional, living a lie. And a lot of it really just comes down to not wavering. A lot of people waver. A lot of people think that they want what they want. A lot of people think that what they want because everyone else is having it. We're told we're supposed to be in this relationship. We're told we're supposed to have this car. But there's not a single person that never manifests. So when someone says that, "Oh, this is of the devil, this is evil," you're never not creating magic. You're never not manifesting. Your thoughts are the transmission of what frequency you project into your reality. So instead of letting the government inundate you with advertisements filled with subliminal messaging so that they program your subconscious, let's take our power back, really boycott and put ourselves on this fasting diet of what images and material we take into our subconscious, and program our own minds the way that we're meant to. And this is what taps you in to the fact that you are limitless. There's anything you can manifest. There's any way that you can create, right? And what's really beautiful about this all is that the reason why, for those of you watching, you may decide you have $5 million right now, right? If anyone wants to do this, we've done this before. If any of you want $5 million, which, mind you, $5 million is fake fiat currency. Like, $5 million only exists as valuable because a group of people have decided that that paper that's not backed by any real gold or anything means anything. So the reason why I have to say it like that is you have a spirit. And like, there's certain things your spiritual self will not see as real that you might see as real, right? You might think you need that $5 million. Your spiritual self is like, you don't, right? So you don't really want it like you think you do, right? But so if you want $5 million right now, all you have to do, you don't have to really light a candle. You can if you want. You don't have to really do these crazy affirmations. I have $5 million. I have $5 million. Just whether you want to visualize it, imagine it. You can look at your bank account. You can look at a duffel bag. You can literally just decide right now, I got $5 million. And now moving forward, I'm going to think as if I have $5 million. Do I really have $5 million in my bank account? Right now, I probably might not. So I'm not going to spend it like I have it, but I can still think like I have it, right? And the reason why this is very difficult for people to maintain is, yeah, you can think you have $5 million, but then when something happens 20 minutes later and you don't have the money, now what are you thinking? Oh, I wish I had more money. Oh, why are things hard for me? So that's not thinking as if you have $5 million. And it's literally this need for you to see things in your 3D environment until you believe it. Something I was guilty of my whole life. And until I stopped doing that, Once I stopped doing that, the synchronicities just kept pouring more through, because we realized that the only thing that's real is the kingdom of heaven that's within you, right? Let's look at how delusional it is to accept what we do see for real, where most things in this world are completely fake or a lie. Oh, please go ahead.
The other thing is that the instant gratification that we're so used to nowadays is also screwing us up with our manifestations, because we don't stay disciplined enough because people want it right now. So then they start to lose faith even more so. That's one of the reasons why I do agree with you. We manifest 24/7 all the time. We don't need to be in high vibe like the law of attraction. The reason why I do recommend it is because when people don't stay, when you do things to get into a higher vibe, you naturally think better thoughts. So I try to get people to do that, because when they're in a low vibe, they'll go down rabbit holes and they'll go back into their old limiting beliefs. So I use it as a tool to kind of be like, all right, you want to make yourself feel better a little bit so you can get out of that old rut or depression that you're in. But you
I
don't need to. You don't need to. You're absolutely right. It just helps people get out of that need. If they don't see it right away, it must mean it's not going to happen, you know?
absolutely, and I love that you said that, because that was my number one main problem that I'm still learning to work with. With me, I am super impatient. So like I want it now. And 5 minutes later, I start to get agitated. Like, what the heck? What the heck? And that's when I had to catch myself. Why am I looking for evidence here? Like, it really taught me the discipline that comes with creating your reality. You know what I mean? And maintaining that, and really wanting to feel good, and really knowing that this is what we do. And once I step into that state, I no longer care about when and how it's going to come, because I already have it now. I am that fulfillment. And it's just very difficult for people to accept that. And that's very sad, because that's how conditioned we are to just basically throw away our power. But thankfully, you know, like Saffron said, it really is the best feeling when we just give ourselves what it is we desire. And I want to make sure we're clear on this, because there is a difference between manifesting and desiring. A lot of times we just desire what we want. Oh, I want that. I really want that. Versus living as if, oh, I already got that. In fact, I'm not even focused on it. I'm doing my own thing. I already know that's going to come through.
And I just had a thought too. One of the reasons why it takes a little bit longer too for us, because the desire is we desire everything. We want things so quick, so fast. When it doesn't happen for us, it's because we're learning what true desire really is and what is really meant for our soul.
Yeah, and I love that too. That's the next step that happened for me, because what would happen is I would manifest something, and then I would just kind of like go back and forth, and then I started to realize maybe I don't really want what I think I want, and this really forced me to go within and discover what it is that I really do want. Right? What place do I want to come from? Because it makes you realize what place we're really coming from. Right? Someone said, does it damage your manifestation when you start doubting but catch yourself and turn that around? Valhalla Spirit, that's such a really good question, because, it doesn't. And what I learned is that your manifestation is perfect. So nothing can damage your manifestation ever. How good does that make you feel? There's literally no wrong way to do this. You can just continue to keep doubting, or you can just catch yourself, because once you turn that around, it's literally like riding a bike, right? Like if you start to drive the wrong way, you could just turn around and just start to drive the right way. And that's what makes it less about the manifestation and more about you, right? I always used to hate when people said enjoy the journey, not the destination. Every time I heard that, I'm like, no, I want to get to the destination. Like, I'm not trying to. And that's how I used to walk around life. Even when I went to my friend's like life celebration, like my Leo friend called me out. He's like, you're just moving around. You know what I mean? Like, you don't necessarily stay present anywhere. And my whole life, like, I never really, I just go to this place, stay in my head, go to that place. And I realized, wow, I don't really like just stay present in the moment. And it's something that I literally have to teach myself how to do. Right. Um, Right. So, and that's another thing I really appreciate, just kind of coming back to being a child and being childlike, and going back to what it is my heart loves, and how, and that's the beautiful thing, how we have been master manifestors the whole time. Like there's certain elements of where we're at right now that we didn't even realize we perfectly brought ourselves to. So, I wanted to just kind of, I'm very grateful we got to communicate this with you, because now we're going to go into like the transits, and how to kind of make sense of that. The first principle that I just wanted to understand, which is the cool thing about the law of assumption, if you were to just operate with this, there really are no true rules. It's really just based on what are you reinforcing and imprinting your brain and your mind with. What are you focusing on? Because that's what you're going to create. Whatever you persist in will harden into fact. And a major theme of this is just persistence. Once you have decided what you want to live, all you have to do is just persist in that until you step into that. It doesn't matter if your 3D environment shows you the opposite. It doesn't matter if you personally experience, because sometimes the universe will test you to be like, I'm going to show this man the opposite, or lady the opposite of what he or she wants, just to see if they're going to maintain that. Because what do most people do? They waver, right? It starts going good until they see that their manifestation isn't working. And then what do? They start to worry about it. That's when you need to keep persisting more. When you start to see that it's not working out, that's when more you have to be like, nice, I got it. Because the circumstances don't matter. Where in our 3D brains, we can think, okay, in order to get to this, I can do option A, B, and C. And if A, B, and C don't work, then we think, oh, there's no way I can get this. When God can just be like, well, here's option D that came out of nowhere. Like there's so many possibilities that we may not be able to see. And this works in the universe too. We can only see a small percentage of the universe, right? Our eyes can only see a certain band of colors and sounds, but there's so many frequencies beyond that. And we don't say they don't exist just because we can't see or hear them. So, and this represents the greatness of you. So that's beautiful. Pluto going through Aquarius is going to expose the corruption of humanity, but also the purification of those who don't fall to corruption and lead through. And the reason why I want to talk about that is because the last time Pluto's in Aquarius, we had colonialists go through indigenous lands, and because of the diseases, wiping out mass amounts of people. Because of war and revolutions, with the French Revolution and American Revolution, hundreds of thousands of people are dead. Famine as a result of war, right? And the whole thing, which is beautiful, because Aquarius is collectives, right? It's humanity. So we're seeing entire cultures of indigenous peoples, boom, done over this period. And that's happening again. I'm using indigenous as an example, but like we're getting ready to see entire cultures of collectives, Koreans, Chinese, Italians, Americans. We're finally reaching the end of that as certain leaders push to bring this one world order. We're still, through pestilence, war, revolutions, going to see what seems like a mass extinction event, people kind of dying in droves, even if that's just ideologically, even if physically they're still alive, but ideologically they no longer identify as that collective. And a lot of what's happening with these outer planets moving out of Aquarius and Pisces and going into Aries to Cancer is reigniting this sovereignty in our individuality, which will bring limits in our individual freedoms and powers to regulate what more we can do. Success is 90% persistence and 10% inspiration. Thank you, Necessary Truths. So this is putting more of the power back in your hands to really take the actions you wish to take. But now taking in these manifestation principles, knowing that you can literally affirm health on yourself, where people have overcome through the power of prayer and persistence, diseases, you know what I mean? Stuff that was supposed to kind of put them out of commission. How would you feel if you knew that you can create anything you want? And just to kind of revisit that, the reason why you can know that you have $5 million, but you might feel like you're struggling to see it in your reality is, remember, most people up until this point have reinforced limiting beliefs. So you've already built programs to say, I have to work really hard to get a lot of money. I'm not worthy of everything I want, right? Just based on behaviors you've reinforced for years. So when you now, out of the blue, say, I have $5 million, all that old programming is not just going to go away and be like, oh, okay. It's all going to, what? No, you need to work hard, blah, blah. So most people, instead of embracing that old programming and just reinforcing the new spell, the new program, they fall back on the old program. And now this new program is just a seed. You didn't allow it to gain roots like others did. But the reason why for some other people it's easy for them to just pick it up, say it, and it works immediately is because they're not letting old programming get in the way and create dissonance. So that's why for some people they can just pick it up. For other people it may take time. This is where persistence breaks through. And that's just a really good feeling, because now no one can take that away from you. Now the only thing that I can do is manipulate your external environment to scare you into changing your beliefs of mine. This is one huge magic war. Once you understand the nature of soul, you recognize that the real war is against your soul, to invade you with imagery so that I can get you to change your beliefs. If I can't get you to change your beliefs, you're the winner. If you believe that you are the winner and I can't get you to change your beliefs that you're to believe you're not a winner, you win. That's really basically what it comes down to. But if I can control the narrative, if I can show you these news pieces, if I can convince you you have anything to worry about, I win just a little. And this is where, oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, it comes back to the power of attachment, letting go. And the second you can just set something and you don't need something, you can want desire, but when you need it and you grasp onto it, that's what's causing the resistance. And a lot of people in the spiritual world, they got so involved in these spiritual connections and they get caught up in this, but they don't realize they're making their own energetic attachment to somebody else, and so they're causing resistance from their partner coming in, and it is, once you can learn how to just let go and not need anything and look at everything like it's a screen, it's a movie, and you're the director, and you keep yourself separate, and you just know that you're just playing a part, like things will come a lot quicker. But your ego wants to hold on to things and control things like a little toddler.
And the idea of it, that was with me in romance too, where I was so obsessed with being with a partner, I would just attach so much to the idea of them. And then I had to realize, oh my gosh, I don't even like this person. I just like the idea of being with them so much. And I don't even take action towards being with them, because then that would have to make me let go of this attachment. And I taught myself to really feel the intensity of my desire, but truly be okay with not having it. And it is such an empowering feeling, where it's like, as much as I want this, I'm gonna be all right. Like, I'm gonna be more than all right. And now, for the first, it took me up until 30 years to realize, what is it that I want, right? To look at myself as someone that, oh, I've always believed I have stuff of value to give to people, but to feel it is different. To be like, okay, what's in it for me, right? Like, I'm giving you all this juice, this leaven, right? So it just took the power back in my hands. And speaking of, I think a huge, we're in such a very important period. Saturn finishing out of Pisces is the final change. So we're going to, over the next year and a half, see everything that constitutes everything in our world change, and it's happening every day. So if we break down these manifestation principles astrologically, this is how we can now come into great insight relative to how you can even use your chart. And this is where, like, now knowing the law of assumption and how it plays out in your chart takes us to a whole nother level. So manifestation all happens in the 4D, right? In the realm of our mind. If the 3D, I don't like using 3D, 45D, but for the purpose of this analogy, the 3D is the physical, right? The 4D, some will say is time, but we could say is our thoughts, right? Our mind that thinks, the causal realm. And then you have the astral realm of imagination, the 5D, that overlaps, like an augmented reality app like Pokemon Go. Our imagination is constantly augmented over the 3D. If I want to see a clown unicorn right now, I have that, right? Gertrude's cousin right now is in front of me right now. But the 4D imagination and thought process is this immaterial space with which we just create our reality, whether you're aware of that or not, with the thoughts you're constantly thinking. Apparently, the average person thinks like 80,000 thoughts a day. So, like, that's your affirmations. Affirmations isn't just saying, I'm rich, I'm successful, I'm wealthy. It's those 80,000 thoughts that you're thinking every day. That's your affirmation. Once you're able to direct that, you got it, right? So that in astrology is Mercury. Mercury is the input output brain processing function. Mercury, the magician in the tarot, is perhaps, every planet is important, but I think I'm very biased as a Gemini, but Mercury, I think, is one of the most important planets that personally you want to refer to, because if you think about a computer, it's all based on the processor and the power core. Everything in that computer that constitutes it all correlates to the programming and processing in it so that you can function everything you're seeing on your screen right now. So the quality of your Mercury is going to let you know the quality of how you process information, right? So you have the processing of information, how you intellectually make sense of your experience, which, if you think Virgo and Gemini, Virgo of numbers and analysis, and Gemini of words and experimentation, are ruled by Mercury. And, reality is everything we experience. Because if our brains are in a vat right now, how can we know what's real? Is it what we smell? Is it what we see? Is it what we sense? All of these things are ruled by Mercury, right? The perception of Virgo and Gemini versus Pisces and Sag, which is imaginary, which is visual, right? Visionary. So it brings us in this catch-22 to where none of us can really say how we know this is real, even though it's been kind of proven it's not real, right? We're just projecting from a soul space. So personally, Mercury is very key because the sun is our conscious awareness, right? It's a baby that's aware of everything. But that baby doesn't know this is a microphone, and that this is a wire, and that this is a cup. They develop those type of motor skills once they step into the Gemini age of like 5 to 7, and they start being inquisitive, and Mercury starts to come online. So the sun is just your conscious awareness. The moon is your subconscious reflection. It's what we like to call your soul. Some people will say the sun is soul because of SOL, but I like to use the moon as an aspect of your subconscious mind if Mercury is your mind, right? The moon, which we don't know if is a satellite from Saturn or not, does represent the subconscious reflection of everything you're aware of and how it makes you feel. It's also going to represent, in connection with Neptune and Uranus, our ability to be a vessel and receptive to who we are within. And that's why this is very important, because Vedic astrologers will say that they're their moon sign. And I am a believer of that, where if you're looking at a phone screen right now or a computer, the actual monitor I like to see as the sun sign. It's the expression of that light. but that's plugged into a power source, right? Saturn, which is the system of power. And all of that you see is based off of programming, zeros and ones that create how you see what you see. But the soul data, right? The actual data, I think, is like the moon. It's the pre-stored information you came into this lifetime with. So we have our soul and we have our awareness, but what connects that? It's our brain. From our brain, we project our consciousness. So from Mercury, we can project the sun, and we know Mercury is the closest planet to the sun. That's, of course, sharing the messages from the royal sun to the rest of the planets. And this is how astrology and the Bible, right, is really an allegory for our body. A lot of these stories that we take historically are really just stories that may not have happened for real, but really accentuate the relationship between our body and the universe. So just like Mercury communicates to the rest of the planets in mythology as a messenger, our brain takes neurons and communicates with the rest of our body, which have, planetary correlations. So it's Mercury that enables us to communicate with the soul reflection and to reflect what we feel. And then it's also Mercury that takes that information and then we now form words to communicate it. The sun is how we express that. So you might have your mercurial thoughts, but if your sun is in a fire sign, you're going to express it passionately. If it's in an air sign, you're going to express it objectively. If it's in a water sign, you're going to express it emotionally. Versus if your moon, you could have a fire sign sun where you express passionately, but your moon is in a water sign. So you're receptive very emotionally. This can create a clash. Your Mercury could be in an earth sign. So even though you express passionately, you process information very groundedly. And this lets you know the quality of your processing unit. If we kind of speak of ourselves as a piece of technology, right? Venus is now going to let us know our heart, the heart which pumps life and blood. This is going to magnetize to us what we find pleasurable. And then Mars is the accelerator on the car, which is our driver. It's what moves us forward, right? And so if the sun is your awareness, with which is the light of consciousness, which quantum mechanics parallels law of assumption and religion in saying that consciousness is really the creator of reality, right? So the light of your sun is the key, the life force energy that you use to create, which is why your sun sign is your affinity. Mercury is the method with which you process the information. And we're like, okay, this is a microphone, this is a cup, this is a cord, whatever languaging you program, because you can literally put whatever word that is. And then Mars is how you actually take action off of your desire. It's how you accelerate the car. Saturn is going to be the engine of the car. It's going to be the power core of your computer or your phone. But what do you do with the power core? You plug it into a wall. That power source is the light of the sun that energizes everything, because we do have the Trinity. And without the spirit, the body is dead and lifeless. Shout out to Dustin, who really has a great breakdown of that, the Holy Spirit and the element of life. So we have these elements of how we can use astrology to map out our manifestation potential. This is where I'm going to teach how to bridge this, because now if you understand the law of assumption, if you know what elements you represent in your natal chart, you'll know what techniques are right for you, because not everyone can visualize. I don't have Sagittarius in my chart. I don't have Pisces in my chart. It's like I'm not the best at imagining things. Other people can visualize a scene like it's there. And so like if you have a lot of water, if you have a lot of fire in your chart, boom, visualization, really feeling it, right? It's easy for water signs to feel it. My Cancer sister had her vision boards. She could just kind of feel stuff. It will always happen. I feel like Cancers are the best at the law of assumption because the feeling is the secret. And feeling is Cancer. It's a functional action. So, it definitely brings credence to that. As air, as an air sign, what's worked for me is writing things down on paper, speaking it, deciding it. And of course, we have all the elements. So this is how we can kind of go more into developing how this works. But when you now plug in your astrology and oh, my Mercury is in a fire sign. So I want to get very excited about what I'm communicating. But if my sun is in an air or earth sign, the way I express it could be more methodical, be more grounded. Now you're aligning more with what works for you instead of trying to use techniques that work for other people. And that's the beautiful thing about magic. You craft it and create. I used to be so preoccupied of how do I do this the right way? How do I make sure this works? And I didn't realize we create how. We literally create how, and then we just reinforce that so that we can literally, like working out a muscle in the gym, work out the muscle of our imagination and create what's possible. Neptune is now going to be the collective intuitive channeling of relative to the space and time you are, the development of your astral realm imagination. Uranus is going to represent the causal realm of your higher mind that taps you into your inner genius. And then Pluto is going to represent your unconscious. It's going to represent that very deep awakening facet of you outside of the personal planets. Jupiter, of course, being your wisdom and expansion. And of course, everything that I'm saying is still, just the tip of the iceberg. But I feel like relative to the Magician card in the tarot, Mercury, the moon and the sun, but especially Mercury, is a very, very important planet. If you just know your Mercury sign and you just follow that will just skyrocket your manifestation to the next level, especially when you study the progressions amongst other things. But remember, it's really what you create. So the reason why repetition is going to work for someone is because they believe that's what it works. The reason why visualization will work for someone is because they believe that's what works. And, really just reinforcing that opens up the channel for you to really just align with what's true and what works with you. And thankfully, in light of these tools, especially with tarot, I like to use tarot now to just manifest instead of just kind of pull a card, get the essence of the card, see what's happening, use it more magically, which I love that we're kind of breaking through into this next level and being able to incorporate these tools very magically. As far as now, once again, these current transits, 2023 is definitely the shifting into supernatural qualities of manifestation, because Taurus in the zodiac represents manifestation. Aries represents that individual cardinal action that manifests the values with which we stand on in Taurus, and on those values we communicate with Gemini, and that activation leads to the rest of the zodiac, right? So with Uranus and the North Node coming out of Taurus and Jupiter in Taurus, this is evolving relative to the last 12 years. Last time Uranus was here, Jupiter was here. Uranus was coming out of Pisces. So the quality of grounding, the physiological quality and sensing of our process of manifesting is bringing this from outside the unconscious to be a lot more conscious of. And it's a fancy way of saying we're bringing the power back literally into our own hands, and the strengthening of the integrity of our imagination is what enables us to literally create this experience. And if we bring it back full circle, a large part of this is in recognizing, just like quantum mechanics scientists won a Nobel Peace Prize for, this universe is not local or real. That means it's not here and it's not real. So that presupposes that what it is we spend the majority of our time focusing on is what will reflect into our reality. And so we have to ask ourselves the question, why are we being inundated with the opposite? Why are we being told the opposite? Is it because these people know we have all this power within us and they're fighting us to program our subconscious so that we can manifest their reality for them? Or is it up to us to take our power back and to really pioneer these new visions, right? People born after 95 with Pluto and Sagittarius have new concepts, things unimaginable. These children with Uranus and Neptune and Aquarius, born 97, 98, and in Pisces, born in the 2000s, they're going to create concepts that the rest of us never thought possible. They're going to pioneer this law of assumption and supernatural abilities in ways that are mainstream. The people born in the 80s and 70s and 60s have reached mastery of their super psychic abilities that us born in the 90s and after, we're not even close to reaching. So they're not as powerful as us, but they're so much more experienced, kind of like the old dojo master who like is 50 years older than their students, and their younger students are more powerful, but he's so experienced you can't even touch him. His form is so perfect. You know what I mean? And that's why I respect the 60s, the 70s, the 80s. It's like your intuition is so on point. You know when the younger kids are lying because they're not experienced, right? And this has really helped me honor how we all help each other. The youth is the fire that lights the way forward. We need the elders and the older generation to guide us with their wisdom. And
So just to add to that, because my boys are in the ages that you're talking about, and they are so wise and intuitive, and I feel it being in the seven. Yeah. So the thing is that in this world, we need to honor our elders because our elders made the mistakes for us. And 70s and 80s, I mean, we are highly intuitive. And the thing is that your generation, the 80s and I mean the 90s and 2000s, are really embracing. You guys are so freaking highly intuitive, but you're connecting more with that our generation too at the same time and together. You're right, you just said it, and we don't even know what's going to become of it, but
right, yeah.
we can feel it, and I can feel it. So I thought that was cool that you mentioned that.
Oh yeah. And I've been mind blown about like I saw the mentalist who wrote that TV show, The Mentalist. I saw him perform. My friend Carrie took me out there, and I realized he has Neptune in Scorpio, which is a 60s aspect. This dude is reading people's minds, it's to the point where you think he talked to the people before the show, but like I saw he had Neptune and Sun in Scorpio, so I'm like, this dude's using real psychic powers. Like he's really intuitive. He did a Russian roulette performance completely blindfolded, and like with being able to hear things, read minds, use a bit of mentalism, which I feel like he did the Scorpio thing and made it look like it was a trick, but he was really using psychic abilities. People born in the 60s, they're going through the Neptune Pisces trine to Neptune Scorpio. That is a full expression and evolution of one's intuition. And that's where at that 60s, 70s point, uh, I can't wait to do my documentary series where I will definitely be reaching out to you because you guys have aspects that are stupid iconic, like sci-fi. Like the once we step into the 70s and 80s, we start to see Neptune go into Sagittarius, Uranus go into Sagittarius. That's God level. That's being able to see visions. You guys are responsible for the huge boom in psychic arts and activity with the revolutions that occurred. And if it wasn't for you guys, we wouldn't even be able to move forward the way we do right now.
Well, and the other thing is that this reminds me, like when I was 16, 14, 15, I dealt with psychedelics and all that stuff, and but then it got closed off. It shut down, and then the 3D reality came in, work hard, and blah blah. And
Ah,
so now I see your like 30 or 20-year-olds and 30-year-olds who are taken and opening the door again for me to come out and be like, whoa, I started this a long time ago and now it's being shown to me again. And that's what I'm saying. Like, it's just reinforcement. Like, you're just bringing in the passion of fire back into what we did, I think the 60s, 70s, and 80s were going through,
And
but it got shut down.
I have so much chills because when you say it got shut down, a lot of people don't know it got shut down. Dreaming with Tess said when it wasn't cool, because what a lot of people don't realize is COINTELPRO, the men who stare at goats, these intelligence organizations that researched indigo children and really, wanted to research psychic ability so that they can fight other countries with it. A lot of people don't know these intelligence agents see what we're doing with internet. Y'all didn't have internet, right? Like, it was considerably more difficult to talk about this stuff without getting, ostracized. And the shutdown was very physical because without social media platforms to communicate to people, this is what people are doing, you had a lot of these intelligence agencies killing these psychic people. I really feel the 60s, 70s, 80s produced supernatural people. The reason why you don't hear about them is because they were thrown in mental institutions, they were jailed, they were killed. Completely stopped. And we're starting to see this happen again, but this is where you guys experienced this before. And like the wisdom of where to guide it, a lot of these things that we learn, if you guys didn't pave and guide that way, I question how much less people would know. I mean, the info would still come out, but yeah, what do you feel about that as far as like the intelligence agencies and how they really shut that down?
Well, it's just that it was a generation, and then all of a sudden, like, it got like, even the psychedelic thing and all that, it got shut down because it became illegal to do so. But the 70s, and I was more of an 80s child, but we still explored it, and and I was an artist in school, so I was in that whole scene. But what happened was, the only thing I can see is that we were told to go certain directions with our educations, told to, everything we were doing was wrong, and so we got directed to go into college. That's when college became big, credit cards became big, loans, and becoming a part of the, and becoming like more responsible, and it's just that whole 60s, 70s era got shut down and turned, and then went into, that's the only way I saw it. I mean, I just closed it off. I didn't go anywhere else with it until about 2004. I started going down a spiritual path, but it wasn't until I did a lot of healing work with body work, because I'm a massage therapist and I do craniosacral therapy and things like that. So I started opening back up to gifts that I once saw when I was a kid, when I was on trips and things like that. And just knowing I was finding myself again, who was shut down, because I had no way to be expressive or creative. And then, and when just pre-COVID is when another awakening happened, in like 3 years ago, where it became more of a mental expansion and being able to understand and see things differently, and then be able to see other generations and understand and manifest and all this. And so I'm still piecing it all together. To just sum it up, I'm still piecing it all together, so I can't give you all those answers.
And that's where I have chills once again, because specifically like the mid to late 60s coming into the early 80s, I want to say like 66 to like 83 and 84, now is the first time ever where finally breaking through that Pluto square and finally breaking through that uphill battle just to like go through. I really feel like y'all generation, because I like to think that Pluto Scorpio in the 90s, we were really fucked with, but I don't think it was really as bad as y'all, because, especially relative to World War II and just a lot of BS that led into our ability to kind of speak about this. I mean, every generation has their own that they dealt with. Now, of all times, is where you're breaking through. A lot of the Neptune, Uranus, and Sagittarius generation coming out of Scorpio, with once again people born in the late 70s, the 70s, the 80s, you're finally coming into these outer planet transits that are giving you the experience to break through supernaturally in sci-fi-esque fashion. And the reason why this is controversial is there's no books written on this. There's no scientific literature purposefully written on this so that no one knows what to do with it. Most of these are misdiagnosed as mental illnesses, which is crazy. And y'all are in a position to completely innovate and revolutionize how we move forward with this. And it should feel like it's all coming together right now.
Well, and it's funny that you say that, because from the 90s on is when they really pushed at mental illness and prescription and ADHD and depression and anxiety and all this. And I was ADHD, of course, and they, so we were numbed. It was almost like we were numbed. And so lately, the past 3 or 4 years, it feels like a whole big portion of my life is like, what was that? And so I'm looking back to when I was younger, and now I'm looking now, and it feels like those two pieces fit. But that whole middle, those 30 years, those 20 years, it's like, what the hell was that? It was like I was under some sort of spell or some sort of, and now it's like we're breaking out, because I feel like I did when I was in my 15s to my early 20s. You know what I mean? Like that was my full expression, and the rest of it was fake, absolutely fake.
I love the way you describe that too, the being numb and just kind of like living this fake life. That's kind of how I feel like growing up younger too. I just guess, and now in retrospect, it's like we don't know what they know. Like I feel in a much deeper way. It doesn't have to be a boardroom of people who are like, we're gonna close it. Because remember that there's still a lot of people don't accept that there are unseen vibrational entities that are
Yes.
behind what's happening. It's not the elite white man in a banking uniform, because we can
Yes.
try and blame racism and classism. These are
Yeah.
just symptoms. They're the heads of the dragon that you cut off. They grow up again. It's hard. The greatest trick the devil ever proves is the greatest trick the devil ever pulls is to make you believe it doesn't exist. So
Yeah.
like fallen angels, principalities, thrones, this war has always been spiritual. And so if we can just use our entertainment industrial complex to show you these things are real, because we they still play by the occult game too. They're gonna show you it's real, but they're gonna label it fantasy. They're gonna label it science fiction. So it's like, you don't really believe that. That's not real. But this universe isn't real. So like this game we're playing is perpetually deceiving people's minds to accept a lie. And that's this evil game. When you pressure somebody, right, to look at a man and to tell and to say, no, that's a woman, right? That goes against that frequency of truth. And I can't necessarily, I think it's very symbolic how everything is coming back full circle to piggyback on the feminine and the divine feminine. I think it's very symbolic how this is beyond just identity politics. It's a war against man and woman, but specifically focusing on that distortion of what a woman is, which is huge. The birthplace through which we and portal through which we come through, it is a very inverted philosophy on you know very sacred principles. And I want to just clarify, I'm not necessarily speaking on trans people, because transgenderism, I think, is also very misunderstood, where you do have certain people who feel like the other gender and they don't try and push it on kids. They don't try and like chop off their dick. You know what I mean? Like you have this agendatized look at trans people that are not really like the real trans person. And then you look at them and hit them with this transphobia, when we've seen this happen with homosexuals and LGBTQ. We've seen this happen with hip hop and rap. We've seen this happen with every organization that starts off with pure roots and then is completely, agendatized in order to completely deceive the masses. So they're using the trans move. They're using trans people, right? Which if you put it yourself in their shoes, you have trans people who are like, wow, this organization is making us look bad. People are looking at us as trans men and women like you're the problem when they don't even have anything to do with it. Their being is being used by the agenda to now, push this stupid message, which takes power away from the goddesses who are awakened and the men who need to tap into their energy to be who they
Well,
are.
this goes back to what I was saying earlier, though. We've got to know our own truth, because what we're seeing on social media is not necessarily what's really happening out there. And a lot of this is being blown in our faces. So, and I'm very big on energy shifts and energy work. And so we can feel like the other gender. I can move into my masculine to do what I want. I can move into my feminine. I'm more feminine energy, but I've had to play the masculine part. I have always felt women, but definitely I know what it feels like to have a masculine energy, but I don't know what it's like to have a masculine body. But everything is perfect and everything is divine. And what's going to happen is, just like our bodies, the earth, the human, the universe wants to be in equilibrium. So whatever it has to do to get us back into balance, it's going to have to do. So this whole thing that we're seeing, with what's going out, the mutations and things like that, to scare us, to freak us out, is to also get us to come back home too and feel into what's real, what's true for us as well. So they're all kind of lessons that are being thrown in our faces and to scare us. And I do agree with you about the women. And here's the thing: is we're in an age where we're trying to heal feminine energy, feminine wounds, ancestral wounds, and same thing when it comes to race and things like that. We're all healing wounds that we've come into. We're trying to do, women need to stand up and just have a voice. And this is what's going to make women who resonate with feminine energy stand up. But the thing about feminine energy is very compassionate, loving, and wants to connect with everybody. So when the feminine energy does rise up, it's going to bring balance and freedom to everybody involved. And it's going to finally, in the masculine too, I could go on forever about this, but divine masculine too, we need to heal, because the men need to have a voice as well too. And so do everybody that can go within and without, but there's always going to be dark and light. And we've got to see past the darkness that's being shown to us right now.
You nailed it with the proliferation of what we're being shown, because like, for example, you have these men out here pushing this stupid ass alpha male message, and what it looks like is that a whole bunch of men are superficially, like, treating women like material. All women are just supposed to do that. But the reality is there's amazing men out there. There are amazing men that know how to treat women out there. But if you look at what the social media is saying, it's going to look like it's just these people who just dick ride Andrew Tate. Then you hear these women spitting these toxic narratives, acting as if, oh, we just care about the money. And now it makes it look like, oh, all these women are materialistic, and they're the most amazing women out in this world who don't even believe in any of that stuff. And that's just been a huge, like, disillusionment to where,
And we're going to see a change. We're going to see a change in this. It's happening to bring balance.
Absolutely. And that's where I feel like, in embracing a lot of the challenges and outright attacks on our freedom, that's only going to influence people to eventually draw the line and to fight back, if anything. So that's where I feel like it's cool every time these people do stuff that take our freedoms away. I think it's needed to kind of remind people, hey, we have to take these freedoms back. We can't just let this happen. Versus if not, we'll just get stuck in a complacent state. Not that it has to happen like that, but regardless, one thing that I've been slowly but surely reluctant to admit, and I would love your thoughts on this, because when you study religion, God used to be seen more as like the mother goddess before the Abrahamic and patriarchal religions kind of came through, right? Which they're I like to believe there's a lot of truth into that. Some of them will speak on God having a wife or whatnot, but there is that triple feminine of the crone and the virgin, and whatnot, and maybe elements to believe perhaps what we call God is actually a creator goddess. And how, if we look genetically, right, I've come to find out, if anything, males are a genetic expression, if not distortion, of women who, with the masculine energy, are in a position to serve and uplift the feminine, so that, whether due to some matrilineal matriarchy, they their guidance can bring greater balance, with us being able to enforce, and things being inverted right now, to where you have a lot more of these males in charge. And not to say, because there's another end of it to which demonizes masculinity, which I think is also really toxic too, trying to make men look out to be like the villains, as much as just the imbalance that comes from men taking all this power, where there is a role for the feminine to kind of be in that position, but because of pride, because of greed and all that. And what really causes me to say this is, we just have to look at nature, right? The XY chromosome will never ever mutate into an XX, but everyone starts off as an XX chromosome. And if you look at the XX chromosome versus the XY, the XX chromosome is way bigger than the XY chromosome. And it really made me think about the, not just the mitochondrial Eve gene, but also just the whole notion of what more women truly are. It almost looks as if men literally mutated from women, almost in the sense where, the wisdom and the psychic ability and the juice is in the feminine. And then that logical calculator aspect we see more with men. Even in manifestation, it's studied that women manifest bigger things, men manifest smaller things but more consistently. And when you put that man and woman together, it creates just this beautiful ability to combine both. So I've just been kind of researching as far as like this whole notion of God being seen as this father, right? Which is more metaphorical, which I don't disagree with. How much of that is really like maybe the other way around and just kind of distorted, inverted?
Well, my thing is, I I see it equal. You kind of disappeared. I don't know if you disappeared for on purpose.
I'm back.
There you are. All right. So I one can't be without the other for me. I don't know. I would have to sit and think about what you're saying about the biology and things like that. But the thing is that a masculine energy, it just got out of balance. I mean, we started where you're the protectors, you're the builders, you're the doers, you're the goers, and like, so of course you were going to stand up and look stronger and more or the God is the father, but in all honesty, as a full feminine, and in tune with myself, like, the father is the comfort around the feminine energy. Feminine energy is we don't have boundary. If we don't have boundaries, we will just create and manifest, and just, we need a strong, solid container for our energy. So without masculine and feminine energy, it has to be equal. And so this doesn't mean gender. That's why I don't want to go too quick into
Right.
that, because
Yeah.
this has nothing to do with gender. It's feminine and masculine energy. We need each other to live to our fullest potential. So I hear what you're saying, and I haven't had enough time to really absorb that in to really come in with a deeper answer than that. It's just that I know that being without somebody for as long as 6 years now, it's like it's harder for me to even manifest and be, because I don't have that masculine energy around me, where it used to even be my boys who are not here anymore, to help contain so that I can stay focused and use my highest potential. So we need both. We need each other to do that, and you need the fire, the passion and the emotion and the feelings to be able to also create something to create for.
Absolutely. Which I definitely had to accept, because there's a part of me that just kind of wants to do everything on my own. And I kind of reached a spot where I realized, I think a major, I won't say block, but a major stunt or something I had to accept is the need for partnership and the
Yeah.
need to bridge my energy. Because I
I've been
felt like,
talking about that lately, though. So many people are on this healing path and they think that they have to heal themselves and be good by themselves.
right,
It's okay. It's okay to not want to be alone. It's okay to want to feel loneliness. It's okay to want to be in a partnership. We're here to engage in that. Some people don't need it at all. They're on here for a different reason, but they are okay and they don't feel loneliness. When we force ourselves to not need somebody, we're going against our heart soul's desire. And so you are meant to be with somebody. Allow it to happen. It's just the thing that we're trying to heal in masculine and feminine relationships is put in expectations upon one another, and wanting you to fix me, wanting you to do everything for me, especially as a feminine energy. Feminine, we've had to heal a lot of wounds, and men had to heal wounds with the way they objectified women. But when we're coming into this balance now, we're realizing, no, we want to be with each other, but we want to help each other live to each other's highest potential. And we can't do it alone. We're humans. We connect. We're connectors. You cannot live or survive on this planet without other people.
and that's
So the
true.
more you want to be alone, the more difficult. You're working harder than smart. All these feminists and all the women that wanted to do it on their own, they're realizing how much more energy it takes for me as a really feminine woman to do the things that I want to do in life, when it could be 50% easier for me, even 60, 70% if there was a man in my life. We're not using our highest potentials. We're not, and
It's
we're
true.
fighting it. And a lot of that is coming too from social media and what you're being programmed. And if people start to go and dive within and figure out what they really want and who they really are, they're going to find their own truth, and they're going to attract in what they desire.
Beautiful. That's really beautiful. I feel like that's a really good note to end off on. I didn't expect 2 hours to just fly by too. Definitely gonna have to do another talk for sure. Oh, you're still muted.
Yeah, I know. I wasn't expecting it to go this way, but you know something? I love you for this, because this is something that I've been wanting to obviously get off my chest too and talk about. And we've been going through this last couple months of trying to find we have to speak our voices. And so thank you that you brought that up.
I still need to invite you on my channel to do a peace talk. So we'll
Yes.
definitely still set that up.
Awesome. And guys, please check him out if you're on my channel. This is the Peace Dealer. Definitely check him out. I am so happy. Thank you again for coming on my channel.
And for those who are coming from my channel, what is your channel called? For so they can find Sean wants
I
to know.
changed it. Okay, sorry. I changed it to Frankie's Alchemistic Tarot because I'm bringing on astrology and talking about manifesting. It was originally Frankie's Tarot, but now it's Frankie's Alchemistic Tarot.
Alchemistic Tarot. I love that. All right. Well, we will definitely see more of you on our
All right.
channel very soon.
Yes.
And thank you so much once again for having me. This is really fun.
Yes. Thank you. You're awesome.
Oh, sweet. All right.
Bye. Bye, everybody.
Peace out.